Welcome to Masters of Regeneration Radio. Conversations with humans who dare to reimagine our place on planet Earth. Earth is changing fast. Evolution happening in real time. An intimate, circular understanding of nature and living systems. We are the land. The land is us. Hi everyone, my name is Tomas Reyes and this is Masters of Regeneration Radio. By the end of 2017, I felt that we collectively as Homo sapiens needed to go beyond what's normal. I'm going to tell you the story behind the podcast, what's brought me here, and a little bit about myself and what I believe in. And before I tell you how Masters of Regeneration came together, let me tell you what happened a year ago. On July 17th, 2017, I launched Beyond Food with my team. Beyond Food is a road trip documentary on food and health. We launched it worldwide on demand, and the aim of the documentary was to inspire people to reconnect to their own health and their own power, to see that your health belongs to you just as your power does, and that we all have different biological needs. And obviously, as the title suggests, that health goes beyond food. That summer 2017, while I was celebrating the launch of Beyond Food, this project we worked so hard on, where I poured a lot of my heart, time, and energy, my life also collapsed. The structure underneath my feet for the 4 years I had spent in Los Angeles fell apart. Life had different plans for me and pushed me in a different direction very dramatically. Dramatically is actually an understatement. I tried to force things back to the way they were for a month or two to realize that that was going nowhere. I don't know if you have experienced this in your own life, but somehow in mine, I've had major transitions in cycles of 4 years and 9 years. In those cycles, I've changed cities, countries, lifestyles, understanding, sort of like a serpent shedding his old skin. I'm a chef and an artist. I specialize in regenerative nutrition, and I've designed diets and cooked for high-performing individuals, composers, actors, art collectors, and entrepreneurs in Los Angeles. My number one strength is to be a learner. Curiosity has driven me to experience different cultures since I was 4 years old, to learn cultures through learning several languages, living in them, to cook since I was 8, and ultimately to nurture this overview effect I carry with me. Kind of like what happens to astronauts when they see our gorgeous planet from space, except I've never been to space. I was born in Colombia. When I was 4, we left for Paris. I grew up there, and I've lived in Tokyo, Rio, New York, Bogota, Los Angeles, and I've traveled around the globe to over 120 cities in 4 continents. It's been both a blessing and a burden at the same time, allowing me to see, on one hand, the universal and specific patterns that connect us in nature, in culture, while feeling I belong to the planet and not to one specific culture. I have also struggled since I was little with chronic inflammation and understanding what foods made me healthy and what foods didn't. I cooked since I was 8 years old, but I didn't want to see until I was 35 that I came here to the planet to heal my body and understand life through food and understanding living systems. It was those personal struggles and fighting chronic inflammation in my 30s while I lived in New York that eventually led me down the rabbit hole onto the production of Beyond Food. By the end of 2017, I was talking to a friend and mentor in Venice, and he said, there's this vast kind of depth to you, but you implement so small. You got to think bigger. And his words really touched me and made me think. And 3 days later, I woke up one morning and I started writing a keynote presentation for what is today Masters of Regeneration. And for some reason, that same week, I was also doing research on hero archetypes. So there were six that interested me: the hero, the warrior, the leader, the healer, the master, and the teacher. And so towards the end of 2017, I realized that I needed to answer that calling that I had been feeling for a couple years and had shied away from. A classic refusal of the call, if you're familiar with the hero journey. I was ready and felt deeply the need to go beyond what was ordinary until then. Earlier that year, a dear friend and an ocean hero died in his quest to communicate how urgent it is today to protect apex predators in the ocean, like sharks. And his passing truly added to the sense of urgency I felt inside. His spirit is alive, though. His family and team are developing exciting projects, which we will hopefully get to explore in a future episode. We live in a fascinating and challenging time for humanity and planet Earth, and I believe this is our moment to rise up to the challenges, to explore all the possible solutions we must and can come up with. I'm very interested in how the brightest minds in living systems, natural cycles, and evolutionary theory can help reconnect us all, reconnect humanity and nature through ancient traditions, groundbreaking science, technology, and data to educate the public at large on how beneficial, productive, and profitable it can be to partner with life's staggering capacity for overflowing self-organization and regeneration. So that December 2017, I felt the need to create something around these hero archetypes and around the need to reconnect to the regenerative cycles of nature, to a circular understanding of our place on the planet, to change how we understand the ways life works and our role in the whole process. That was the origins of Masters of Regeneration. So last January, just 6 months ago, I was in Bogota, Colombia, and I was writing the text for the trailer I wanted to put together for the project. And I showed it to a friend who's a composer, and he said, "Well, Tomas, I mean, yeah, it's not academic, but it only reaches my head, really, not my heart, not my guts. So why don't you think about it?" And again, a few days later, it was a Friday morning, I woke up and I wrote this: "I am not made up of particles and waves and beams of light with a definite existence. Instead, I work in a much more exploratory way. I am aware of all the possibilities at once, and I try them out all the time. I fail all the time. I succeed all the time. I refine all the versions of me and reinvent me forever. I create and I destroy all the same to create again, because I can. I am everywhere. I am everything. I am life. If this version of me I call humans isn't protecting all the other versions of me, I can always create something new." And I wrote those words and I was like, oh my God. So I sent him a text on WhatsApp with the new copy. And his reply was just, "Holy shit, ... So I was onto something. And so I immediately looked up on YouTube. I was like, I need a video that tells the story of evolution in 1 minute. So I was like, oh, evolution timeline or something like that. And I ended up finding a video that was perfect, which is the video you've seen if you've seen the trailer for Masters of Regeneration. And it was made by this amazing guy called John Boswell. He's a composer. He lives in Washington. And I reached out to him and I said, "Did you make this? What's up with this story? And check this out. I wrote this text and I put it over your video, and they're meant to be together." And he was like, "Well, dude, I put that together from different pieces and all that. I made the music and, use it for whatever you want." And I was like, wow, that's awesome. So I put together a trailer and then started inviting people. And what happened next was a series of amazing encounters with him, with the artist. We developed the 13 characters for these for the Protectors of Life collection, the t-shirt manufacturers. They're a small company in Colombia. They use ecological cotton. They're amazing. The printers. And finally, the composer that I ended up connecting with in Colombia, who did the intro and the outro for this podcast, as well as some other awesome people who have contributed from the fringes while I was there. So it's been an amazing 5 or 6 months leading up to this launch, and so that's why I'm really excited to be sharing this story with all of you guys. So our understanding of living systems and our place in them is also becoming more and more intimate, thanks to science and thanks to a broader understanding of the big picture. Where are we? Why are we here? How do we bring meaning into our experience of being alive? And how does, we're on the verge of understanding how information flows. We're on the verge of a very intimate understanding of how information flows from one organism to the next, and on Earth, So we find ourselves at this dynamic and demanding time. We're in the midst of this fifth industrial revolution with the advent of synthetic biology, robotics, nanotech, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing sort of blurring the lines between the physical, digital, and biological worlds. So like Juan Enriquez says in his book, we are truly evolving ourselves. At the same time, we're witnessing the rise of a regenerative revolution where humans, thanks to science, are truly reconnecting with the cycles of nature and how to keep all of life healthy. Oceans, soil, the atmosphere, and so on. We're also witnessing, it's almost like we could, I love time lapses because you can see the speed of other organisms, things that you would never see, like a plant decaying or like a plant moving towards the sunlight. So it's almost like evolution is happening so fast right now that we can almost witness it in real time. And we are witnessing unparalleled advances in food production and transportation and previously unimaginable breakthroughs in medicine. And I'm fascinated by the idea that this is a time of big dramatic changes and that old models of reality and relating to the environment are just withering away. They're going to be gone very soon because there's new ones that work better for all organisms on the planet. Just as an idea, just 100 years ago, I think, we thought that going beyond 35 miles an hour would kill us. That's kind of changed that, we're so limited by what we don't know and the new discoveries and the new understandings. So we are in the Anthropocene, yes, the age of humans, yet there is also the possibility of reconfiguring our understanding of being alive and managing energy and life on the planet. And dependent upon our choices, we will survive as Homo sapiens or reinvent ourselves as something new altogether. Homo sapiens circularis or Homo sapiens biohacked. I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to ask one day Yuval Harari what he thinks about all that. So we interview amazing humans around the world to talk about all this process of reconnecting to nature through science and food, water, ecosystems, synthetic biology, and so on. Anti-aging breakthroughs and memory training and regenerative medicine, and all of these sounds with meaning and structure, which we call language, and with which we imagine, envision, and create our reality. My name is Tomas Reyes, and this is the Masters of Regeneration podcast, and our mission is to distribute knowledge to the masses for a practical understanding on abundant human living with planet Earth. So please follow us on Instagram at Masters of Regeneration. You're listening this right now. If it's not on iTunes, please go to iTunes, give us 5 stars, leave an awesome review, and check out our first 3 episodes with Jeff Moyer, the executive director of the Rodale Institute, the guys behind the new organic regenerative certification, with Tom Skalak, and we talk The fifth revolution, we talk the Internet of Species and how information flows go through the biological world. David Edwards, and we talk about creating things that matter, which is the title of his upcoming book. And finally, Muipu, who is an indigenous apprentice. He's 25 years old and he's from the heart of the Amazon jungle. And we talk about how they have kept life healthy for thousands of years because they follow very strict ecological calendars. So now I want to share with you the keynote presentation that I wrote, which illustrates with a few slides what I'm talking about and the urgency for all of us to think of all life on Earth as being part of ourselves, because biologically it is. If you're listening to this episode 000 on iTunes or another platform, I invite you to find the time to watch the presentation on YouTube so you can see all the slides. Here we go. I am not made up of particles and waves and beams of light with a definite existence. Instead, I work in a much more exploratory way. I am aware of all the possibilities at once, and I try them out all the time. I fail all the time. I succeed all the time. I refine all the versions of me and reinvent me forever. I create and I destroy all the same to create again. Because I can. I am everywhere. I am everything. I am life. If this version of me I call humans isn't protecting all the other versions of me, I can always create something new. That's Masters of Regeneration, a global community of protectors of life reimagining our relationship to Earth. So let me start by saying that we've come a long way. We've come a long way in the last 20 years. The lifestyles of health and sustainability, the LOHAS market, in the US alone represents 1 in 4 Americans and about 290 billion in US spending power for goods and services. Organic is known around the world with different names in different countries. And we still have the highest concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere of the past 500,000 years. So we're here to talk about this. We're here to talk about big changes. And by big change, I mean dramatic changes where models of reality are crumbling and new ones are coming in. Buckminster Fuller used to say, I love this quote, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, you build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." So that's where we are. We have this current level of CO2 in the atmosphere, mostly from fossil fuels. Here are some examples of mindsets and models that no longer work. For example, top left is a raspberry farm north of Los Angeles, about an hour away north. And it's a clear example of how agriculture, industrial agriculture, doesn't think in terms of managing ecosystems. It's still a linear mindset where they come in, they install their little factory. It's just fruit or vegetables, but it's still this factory mindset of efficiency. The soil is completely dry, as you can see there, and they'll use that land for about 5 years, and then they'll move on. Top right is a feedlot. You're more familiar with that. Cows that are enslaved, they're in mud, they have no space, no room to move about, and they're fed corn and other feeds. Evolutionary speaking, cows, bison, and other grazing animals are designed by nature to roam free, graze, stomp the ground, and give back to the soil. Bottom left is a farmed salmon processing plant. This is an appalling image. They are dumping blood and all the toxins from the processing plant onto the waters where one of the biggest salmon runs in the world goes through. This is an image by the amazing Paul Nicklin, who's a great conservationist and photographer. And bottom right, factory pumping CO2 and who knows what else onto the atmosphere. It's one of those images that kind of looks like this one, but it's not exactly the same, is it? Nature has these around the world. They're nature's thermostats, right? In history, throughout history, when the planet was too cold, volcanoes would erupt, pump CO2 in the atmosphere, and warm the planet so that life wouldn't freeze away. Well, we're clearly gone too far. The problem with having too much CO2 in the atmosphere is that oceans are acidified because of excess CO2. As soon as the CO2 touches the water, it turns into carbonic acid. And plankton, which is at the bottom, at the structure, at the base of the food chain in the oceans, and is 98% of the ocean's biomass, produces half the oxygen we breathe and captures about 1/3 of the carbon. So like I was saying, we need healthy oceans, we need healthy soils, we need healthy plankton. We need those because they help sequester a big chunk of the CO2 in the atmosphere. Now, what will happen to Earth's climate and all life on the planet if the ocean and the land can no longer absorb nearly half of all climate warming CO2 emissions in the future? Hopefully that future doesn't happen. But what could happen is what is happening to a large extent right now. This bear, to me, represents all of us. He or she represents life. He's wasting away. This is another image by Paul Nicklin. And he's starving, because his environment has changed so much, right? So, but we're here to talk about big changes, and because we're not here to fight the existing models that no longer work, but to talk about solutions to our challenges. Solution part 1, you know it very well. We all live in it. We wake up in it every day, and life on the planet exists thanks to being in this thing we call the solar system. It's perfect. It's worked perfectly for billions of years. And here it is. So the solar system. You're welcome. So on Earth, in the carbon is used to make carbohydrates and fats and proteins. They're the major sources of food energy. And these compounds are oxidized to release carbon dioxide, which the plants capture, and they make organic compounds with that CO2. That whole chemical reaction is powered by this guy in the middle called the sun. It's all powered by the light energy of the sun. And although the Earth constantly receives that energy from the sun, its chemical composition is basically fixed, the Earth's chemical composition. So, and there's only more additional matter added to Earth occasionally by meteorites, right? And because this chemical composition is not replenished like energy, all the processes that depend on these chemicals must be recycled. These cycles include everything on the planet. You want to call it, living matter, organic matter, non-organic matter. That's a whole other discussion, but it includes everything that lives on the planet, that is on the planet. So there's a whole new world being born right in front of our eyes. It's almost like a new relationship of humans to our environment and the cycles of nature and ecosystem is brewing. There's more and more people educating themselves and taking action. So I'm really excited that we can finally start saying goodbye to systems that no longer work, models of understanding reality that don't work for the planet and for life as a whole. And as we move from this limited understanding of life to this broader understanding, seeing the big picture, seeing this series of interdependent cycles of regeneration, these living systems, we start seeing the big picture. And the big picture kind of looks like this. In nature, there's no above or below. There's only networks within networks, and the cycles are very short or very long. A second, a day, a minute, a week, a month, a year, 4 years, 9 years, and so on. I think personally that understanding life as interdependent cycles of regeneration is perhaps our most important act of the present. It's our responsibility. It's your responsibility. It's our collective responsibility. The good thing is the grass can be greener. I mean, remember that raspberry farm that I told you about? You see the red arrow? So that raspberry farm is over there. And what you see here in the foreground is a biodynamic farm. And in this biodynamic farm, they put cover crops. They encourage bird of prey so that the birds of prey eat the rodents that might eat the fruit, and so on and so forth. They have bees. And every year after the harvest, the soil is richer than the previous year. So yes, biodynamic is expensive, but there are other things. There's always obstacles. They say it's too expensive to produce healthy food for the current number of people around the planet. They also said that about electric cars before Tesla, before Elon Musk, before solar energy. And because we're talking about big changes, we also thought as a species, just about 100 years ago, that if we went faster than 35 miles an hour, our lungs would blow and we would die. Clearly, that's not true, right? So there's always diverging, confusing opinions on what's healthy for the planet and how we're going to feed these people. And people say, no, you got to ditch GMO and no meat and no gluten and no corn, no soy, no sugar, etc., etc. But that's still the old mindset of looking at one culprit, looking at just one part of the whole system. But our world today is integrating faster than ever before. And so, as you'll see on episode 1 with Jeff Moyer, the executive director of the Rodale Institute, we talk about the regenerative organic certification. And this is Rodale, the guys who invented organic, basically, or the word organic in the large agriculture modern world, together with Patagonia and Dr. Bronner's. And they just very recently, a few months ago, launched the regenerative organic certification, which goes beyond organic. And they say, if we adopt organic regenerative practices globally on less than half the farmland in the world, we believe we could sequester all annual emissions of carbon. That sounds good, right? So here's an image of some people and some organisms on the planet, us included, that have lived for thousands of years in harmony with their environment. And they follow very strict rules in order to do that. Otherwise, the jungle would consume them, I'm pretty sure. Which is, and this is us in big cities, mega cities, in this case, Tokyo, on peak hour train going to, I don't know, Shinjuku or Shibuya. If you've been to Tokyo, you know what I'm talking about. But in the Masters of Regeneration community, we're neither Aborigines or indigenous, but we're not unconscious humans moving about life mindlessly either. The questions we ask ourselves are, how do we start every day renewed, regenerated, with a richer gut and health and body, and the same for the land and for the soil? How do we create the recurring conditions for life and nature to restore themselves and thrive? And how do we bring all this new knowledge, all these scientific breakthroughs, all this regenerative understanding of how ecosystems work into our own individual lives? That's what we're after in the podcast, essentially, to have conversations with all these amazing humans who dare to reimagine how we live and how we relate to the environment. And most importantly, the most pressing question, obviously, is that since nature will restore the balance one way or another, how do we make sure we stay welcome to this awesome banquet that is life? So here comes solution part 2, which is what we propose, and it's the Masters of Regeneration community. It's a podcast, it's a series of online courses, and a global community, a global tribe of protectors of life. We are offering an ongoing stream of content, of the YouTube channel, the interviews, and we'll do workshops and events. and parties, and we're developing a line of fermented food products. And we have already started this really cool clothing line with t-shirts mostly for now, with these characters that we created, the 13 protectors of life, which are half human, half plant, half fungi, and they stand proud with their healthy ecosystems around them. And they all have hero archetype names, sort of like, for example, the protector of the Amazon, or the healer of the soil, or the leader of the atmosphere, and so on. The idea is that they represent that integrating movement that is happening right now. And we're also developing this reward system for people that become part of the community. And in this reward system, as people take one course and the other course and get more engaged and take more action to make, small changes in their lives that in numbers become big changes. So we could have a series of titles, this sort of gamification of the whole process, where you would get a title or a tag or a patch or something that says, well, now you're teacher of the biomass level 1, or you're a leader of evolution, and so on and so forth. And this whole idea came to me in December 2017, when I was looking at the 6 hero archetypes: the warrior, the leader, the teacher, the master, the healer, and the protector. And so I thought about it, and then saw things followed the signs and the creative process, and we ended up developing these 13 characters. Like I said, they stand proud with their ecosystems around them. There's lions and hawks and snow leopards and antelopes and bison and so on and so forth. Go check them out on our website or on our Kickstarter campaign, mastersofregeneration.com. All the links are there. And so for our course subjects we're developing right now, here are some samples of the titles that we could have. Say Carbon 101, or What's the Water Cycle, or Why are we transitioning from the word sustainable to regenerative? What is biocentrism, and why is it important to bring biology back into the big discussion about life on Earth and the nature of reality? The principles of regenerative nutrition, what are they? Can we redefine things like the word restaurant? What does it really mean? Or how to develop an evolutionary understanding of life? What are epigenetics and thinking generationally, and why does it matter? And so on and so forth. So just a quick reminder that to think in circular understandings, right? Life happens in cycles. Water will stay about 9 days in the atmosphere to thousands of years in the oceans. The Great Conveyor Belt takes 500 years to churn deep water across the whole planet. No matter the size of those cycles, they all happen right here. They all happen right here on Earth. And that's where we get to live, and that's where everything that has always been is. The past isn't anywhere, kind of abstract. The past, everything that's ever happened on Earth, everyone that's ever been, they're all here in the present with you. All the people you've admired, all the great philosophers, all the great conquerors and explorers, all the history that you've read, it's all here right now in the present. We are the land, and the land is us. This is not poetry. This is biology. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you so much for listening. I want to ask you to please go check out our Kickstarter campaign. Go to our website, mastersofregeneration.com. Visit us and follow us on Instagram at Masters of Regeneration. Please donate. We need your support. We're a small team doing all this research and creating all this inspiring knowledge in various formats, designing and composing and doing all this for you so that we can distribute this knowledge to the largest amount of people that we can. And we contribute to this reconnection of humans to a more harmonious life with nature. Thank you so much again for listening, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode.